We've just got a couple of things we need to do. Item 3.0, authorization of issuance of up to $5.2 million in bonds and bond anticipation notes for renovation project. Is there a motion? Move.
We approve this as well. We have to read this. What's the motion? Just the first paragraph.
Okay. The motion, I move that the resolution entitled Resolution to Authorize Issuance of General Obligation Bonds and Bond Anticipation Notes in principal amount of up to $5.2 million for renovations, upgrades, and improvements to various RSU1 schools be adopted in form presented to this meeting, and that an attested copy of said resolution be filed with the minutes of this meeting.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
A second by Bill. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion? None opposed? That motion passes. Okay, we'll move on to item 4.0.
Before we do that, Dick Rannigan's here, just to kind of do a quick thing about the ban.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Dick Rannigan, Gorham Savings Bank, financial advisor to RSU1. In conjunction with the issuance of the bonds that were approved by the voters last fall and just approved for you to go out to solicit bond anticipation notes or bonds, the district solicited quotations from various banks around the state for the issuance of a ban up to, on an as-needed draw basis, up to $5.2 million. 2 bids were received. The low bid was from Bath Savings Institution at a rate of 0.70%. Again, that's on a draw basis, so the district can draw that money down as it needs it to pay bills in conjunction with the renovation projects. And there are 2 one-year renewals at the option of the district that are available to it, and there's a set formula for that. The only other bidder was Androscoggin Savings Bank. They were slightly higher, and recommend that the board approve the issuance of a ban with Bath Savings Institution at 0.7%.
okay. Any questions for Dick?
It seemed from the calculation that the renewal rate of borrowing on renewal was the same as at issuance?
Right, what it would be the only variable is what one-year LIBOR would be. Right now it's 0.55. Should that go up or down? The add-on is fixed from Bath Savings. The only fluctuating number would be LIBOR. So if that moved up or down, the rate would move up or down on renewal time.
Any other questions for Dick? Okay, and again, that is renewable on a year-by-year basis.
Right, and it's also prepayable without penalty. So if the district wanted to issue permanent financing, it can. It's very flexible from the district standpoint. But it is renewable on one-year terms.
And access to those funds?
On a draw basis, an account would be set up, and Ruth and Patrick can have funds drawn down as needed to pay bills of the projects.
But I mean time frame, it's immediate, correct?
The closing is anticipated for April 24th, when documents would be signed.
Okay. Any further discussion? Anything you wanted to add, Dick? Patrick?
Just need a motion.
Right. Do you have the written motion for the ban?
Just to approve Bath Savings at that rate.
Is there a motion to approve the ban with Bath Savings at the rate quoted by Dick?
I'll move it.
Moved by Steve,
At 0.7.
That's correct.
Second.
second by Alan. Any further discussion? All those in favor? None opposed? That passes. Okay, we'll move on to item 4.0, authorization of architect contract with Harriman Associates. This again is an action item. Is there a motion regarding this contract?
I move in acceptance of Harriman. It's our
Okay, a motion by Alan to accept the contract. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Bill.
And just what I handed out to you today was just, the questions are starting to come, which are reasonable questions in my mind, is that with the announcement of Morse, again, still being, it still could be, several, could be 5 years away from now before we go into a building, and then again, that's coming from some information that, the Department of Education is putting out there. Could be a little longer if certain things get in our way. However, we did make sure that we had provision in this Harriman contract, gives us the flexibility that if there are projects that we were thinking to do at Morse, that our own facilities director, myself, as well as Harriman, deems we don't have to do to the level that we originally thought, or there's some things that we don't do at all, then we have that flexibility, and the contract price would reflect that.
Okay. Bill, were you involved in the negotiation of this contract?
I was involved in the selection of the provider. I was
Okay.
not involved directly.
How did we end up at that price?
A combination of looking at what BGS offers, as well as talking with Harriman and negotiating back and forth. And we also had Bill Stockmeyer from Drummond & Whitson review this, as well as help to negotiate and feel like it's a fair price for the amount of work that they're going to do.
And BGS being the state,
Right, the Bureau of General Services.
right, and how did the BGS rate compare to what we're being
Well,
charged?
8 to 10%, I think, is the percent. Again, if we were spending 5.2 with this project, we don't know that we're going to spend 5.2 at this point, so that's why we had some negotiating going back and forth. And looking at the estimated cost of our projects and the designing and the bidding of all those, again, feeling like this was a fair contract, and Bill Stockmeyer sees a fair amount of these contracts come through.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Steve.
Just, Patrick, just for the record, could you just quickly, note what services Harriman is providing under the contract? I mean, design,
Yeah.
but they're also serving as clerk.
Clerk of the works, yeah, I mean, all the design piece, I mean, you have the, if you have the contract that I sent to you guys, I mean, a lot of it, some of it's, the small things is reproduction, I mean, $5,000, I mean, $3,500, transportation another $500, but for the $200,000 for the basic services is the design, coming over here, working with Dave hand in hand, working with the subcontractors, I mean, typical to what we had when we built the new Woolwich School, and the Clerk of the Works as well.
And they have insurance on the work that they do. So. Go ahead.
Just a question, will this study involve whether you decide to renovate Morse or move a new high school? Is this
No,
all involved in the
what
thought
this,
process?
no, what this contract is, it's just a contract with an outside architect
Right,
to oversee all of the projects that are gonna be funded by the bond. They're not involved at all in deciding which way we're gonna go with the Morse in the future.
is somebody looking at that process now as it plays into this?
We've charged, the board back in October, November, charged the facilities committee with forming a community group, a subcommittee that would start that process.
I'm just wondering if, depending which way RSU1 goes or the state goes as far as renovating a new school, will that affect any of the money being spent on this 5.2 bond?
I mean, for me, the 5.2 bond, if you're specifically talking about Morse High School, would be those essential items that need to be done there. I mean, at the same time, we're going to be having conversations about renovation versus new. Our first step in the process is to talk with Scott Brown up at the Department of Education and have him come down and also meet with our committee and, see what guidelines are there as far as renovation versus new. But yeah, I mean, some of these things that we do here, will certainly enhance the learning environment and the functionality of Morse High School. But I think it's early to say that that could lead to renovation. Does that make sense?
Yes,
So, I mean, these are things that are long overdue in my mind,
but
for the students and staff that come in there every day.
this will affect this announcement last week as far as the funding goes. Granted, maybe it probably will be a few years down the road. Does that affect in any way, shape, or form the spending or how you spend the 5.2?
Definitely. I mean, that's been a consideration, that as we go back and look at some of these projects, one of the things that Patrick said to me in discussions that he's already had with Harriman is look at these projects in the light of, there is a possibility that within 5 or 6 years, we'll no longer be utilizing this facility. So if some of these projects can be pared back, they'll certainly consider that. But, you know, things like ventilation, heating controls, that stuff needed to get done, will get done.
So you
But
evaluate the whole, you will be evaluating the whole process?
they will be looked at in that
Every
context.
project, I mean, Dave came in this morning and said, you know, when can we sit down with, you know, Harriman immediately? And I've talked with Jeff Larimer, Harriman, he knew the announcement last week and said we need to come over and sit down and meet and reevaluate the projects that we had for Morse. We may do, you know, again, we're still going to do some of those, obviously. To what degree we do them to could be scaled back, and there may be a few that we don't need to do.
How was-
Judgment.
How is the process set up as far as you just decide whether to say renovate or a new school? How does that play out down there?
That goes back to what I was saying, that the plan had been, we were going to have a subcommittee made up of community members.
Right.
They would begin to look at that on behalf of the board, make a recommendation to the board. Look, we recommend you go renovation, or we recommend that you go build new, based on the research that they did, meetings with the public, discussions with the community. So all of that work would have been done prior to us hearing from the state. At this point, it's going to happen in conjunction. As we start to move down the road with the state, hopefully this committee will begin working to make a recommendation to the board one way or the other.
To what degree does the board control what happens as far as renovate a bill, or the state controls it? Do you know who has the upper hand here?
State.
No, I think it's a combination.
So you do have some say,
Uh-huh.
okay.
But the state has the dollars.
Right, that's what I'm wondering, how much input.
That's where the ultimate control will be.
Okay.
I don't think, again, we'd have to hear back from the state, but I don't think the state would dictate to us, you have to renovate,
No.
or you have to
Okay.
build new. They'll fund it based on the recommendation that we make to them.
And what your studies found.
Yeah, I think, you know, there's all kinds of variables, acreage,
But they
you know,
need to see.
that we need to build the school on. Again, they would give us input, and we would give us.
But you have some say.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Did you,
No.
I thought you were raising your pencil,
Hold on.
itching your nose. Okay, there's a motion on the floor to accept the contract. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. We'll move on to item 5.0. Is there a motion to adjourn? Second? Second by Alan. Any further discussion? Any further comments from the public? Questions? No. Okay. There's a motion on the floor to adjourn. All those in favor, raise your hand. None opposed? This meeting is adjourned.